On a stormy night, a group of fishermen try to survive on the high seas and come across a mysterious creature that invades their boat and starts attacking them. Because of the darkness, the men can't figure out what the thing is, and Chris ends up being seriously injured. After claiming its first victim, the creature disappeared and the fishermen rushed to its aid. Minutes later, a rescue helicopter appears and Chris is taken away to receive medical attention. A few days later, in the town of Bristol Cove, the locals are celebrating Mermaid Day and Xander meets with Ben, the mayor's son, to show him the images that were taken on the day Chris was attacked. The fisherman believes that the creature that invaded the boat they were on was a mermaid, but Ben, who is a marine biologist, says that such creatures only exist in fairy tales. What these men don't realize is that the military helicopter that rescued Chris managed to capture the creature that attacked him, and now the mermaid is being held prisoner. The next day, while on the beach with his girlfriend and some friends, Ben hears the screams of a boy who has just spotted a shark. Luckily, the animal isn't alive and suddenly its head starts floating in the ocean. Intrigued by what might have attacked the shark, Ben decides to take what's left of the animal to Maddie's house and, with her help, tries to find out what attacked it. When it gets dark, the young man drives home and almost runs over a young woman, who suddenly appears walking in the middle of the road. When she sees him, Rin tries to run away, but she is too weak and ends up fainting during her escape. Ben quickly runs towards her and wraps the stranger's body in his coat. He then loads her into his truck and takes her home. Minutes later, the doctor appears and, as Ben opens the door to see him, Rin runs out of the window. That night, the young woman sleeps on an abandoned boat and, in the morning, decides to walk around the city. After a few minutes' walk, Rin arrives at the pier and starts looking for her sister, who has been caught in a fishing net. During the walk, the mermaid meets Donnie and gets into his car so that he can take her to the location of the helicopter that captured Donna. However, in the middle of the road, the man decides to stop in the middle of the forest and tries to kiss her. At this point, Rin attacks him and throws the man's body through the windshield. She then gets out of the vehicle and walks to the Marine Institute where Maddie works. The woman is introducing a pair of sea lions to a group of children when the mermaid appears and the animals start acting strangely. Worried, the teacher decides to take her students away and Ben finally meets Rin again. After introducing the young woman to his girlfriend, he calls Dr. Abbott again because he realizes that Rin is even worse off than when he found her. As her symptoms worsen, the young woman starts coughing and loses the ability to breathe, so she crawls across the deck and jumps into the water, where she undergoes her transformation. Soon, its body begins to be covered in scales. Finally, its legs come together to form a fishtail. Through the tank's security cameras, Ben follows Rin's transformation and discovers that she is a mermaid. At that moment, he jumps into the water and ends up being attacked by her. Luckily, the man manages to escape from the creature and swim to the surface, where he picks up a metal stick to strike it. After pushing her away, the young man climbs onto the deck and is found by the doctor minutes later. In an attempt to understand what happened, Ben decides to go to Helen's store, a woman who has dedicated much of her life to studying mermaids. According to the woman, when they are in the water in their natural state, mermaids see humans as prey and their natural instinct is to try to eliminate them. That night, Helen gives Ben a book about the history of mermaids and the young man discovers that, for many years, they were hunted by humans, who saw them as a threat. The next day, Ben goes to meet Xander and decides to join him on a fishing trip, where the young man intends to meet other mermaids. While he's out at sea on a fishing boat, Rin returns to the mainland and breaks into Ben's house. When she realizes that the man is not at home, the mermaid decides to pay a visit to Helen's store and the woman immediately recognizes her. At this point, Helen closes the store so she can talk to Rin in private and discovers that she is looking for her sister, who has been captured. When he returns to Bristol Cove, Ben finds his girlfriend and shows her the images recorded by the security camera. When she discovers that mermaids really exist, Maddie is overwhelmed and decides to help her boyfriend track them down. That afternoon, the couple decide to go to Helen's store to show her a device that Ben found stuck in the hull of their fishing boat. When Ben turns on the device, a peculiar sound is emitted and Rin, who is hiding on the second floor, becomes desperate. The truth is that the sound was recorded by the military while Donna was being attacked and the device was implanted in the fishing boat to attract other mermaids. Hearing her sister's screams, Rin is furious and runs downstairs in an attempt to find her. However, the young woman soon realizes that it's just a recording, so she takes the speaker and asks Ben to help her find Donna. Now the young man goes after Xander and hands him the device, hoping that his friend will help him track down where the signal is coming from. The next morning, Xander receives a message from Chris and learns that he is in trouble. Since the night the young man was attacked and taken away by the military, no one has heard anything about what happened next, so his friends decide to go after him. When they call the phone number from which Chris's message was sent, they discover that the cell phone belongs to Dr. Stevenson and manage to track her down. When he discovers the town where the woman lives, Xander and Calvin drive there and lie in wait in front of her house. When Stevenson gets into her car, the pair follow the doctor to a military base, but decide to flee when they see two armed soldiers approaching. That day, Rin accompanies Ben and Maddie to the institute and meets Jerry, who invites her to a pool party. The young man convinces Rin to accompany him and takes the girl to the house of one of his friends, where several young people are gathered. When they realize that the mermaid has disappeared, the couple drive around town to try to find her, and Maddie comes across a photo that Jerry has posted on social media. At that moment, she realizes that Rin is with him and Ben drives to the place. When they get there, they start searching for the young woman and come across an accident, in which Rin ends up falling into the pool. Frightened, the couple think of an escape route to get the mermaid out of there without being seen, but luckily for them, Rin doesn't transform, and Maddie manages to hide her before the police arrive. After receiving a tip-off, Sheriff Dale shows up at the scene to break up the party because the excessive noise is disturbing the neighbors. Seeing his son-in-law, Dale shows him a sketch of a girl and asks if Ben knows her, as she is the main suspect in Donnie's murder. However, Ben claims he doesn't know her, and, meanwhile, Maddie tries to keep Rin hidden. When asked why she didn't transform when she fell into the water, the mermaid reveals that her transformation only happens when she comes into contact with seawater. That night, Donna is immobilized by the medical team so that more blood samples can be removed from her body. At that moment, the mermaid decides to strike back and attacks all the humans around her. After the attack, one of the nurses triggers the alarm and Chris wakes up frightened. He immediately gets up and walks through the corridors looking for the exit. During his escape, Chris comes across an injured Donna on the floor and decides to help her escape, without even realizing that he is facing a mermaid. Arriving in the parking lot, the pair steal a car and manage to leave the base without arousing suspicion. When he finds out that Xander has discovered Chris's location, Ben decides to go and meet his friends, and the group decides to break into Stevenson's house in search of clues about her work. Suddenly, a military vehicle appears and the team has to go out the back door. At that moment, they look out of the window and see two guys searching the house for the doctor's computer. At that moment, Ben realizes that something has happened to Stevenson, but he has no idea that she was eliminated by Donna during a battle that took the lives of several employees working for the army. Through the security cameras, Deckard discovers that the mermaid took human form before escaping and stole Dr. Stevenson's uniform. That afternoon, Ben and his friends decide to return to the base to find out what happened to Chris and come across several bodies being removed inside black bags. In an attempt to find out if Chris is among them, Xander decides to follow them, and Ben decides to go back to Bristol Cove because he's worried about Rin. Having spent a long time out of the ocean, the young woman's skin begins to peel and she once again finds it difficult to breathe. Just then, Dale shows up at the reservation where his daughter works and shows her Rin's picture, but Maddie says she doesn't know her and manages to throw her father off the scent. Discovering that she is being sought by the town sheriff, Rin decides to return to the ocean. However, before he leaves, Ben gives her a necklace with a tracking device so that they can find her if Rin needs help. While following the military vehicle, Xander receives a call on Dr. Stevenson's cell phone and discovers that Chris is alive. Immediately, the man decides to change course and goes after him. At that moment, he calls Ben to tell him the news, and Rin decides to accompany him, as she believes Chris knows where her sister is. When Ben and Maddie get out of the car to find their friend, Rin spots her sister walking towards the forest and goes after her. Seeing the mermaid walking alone, Maddie goes after her and Ben keeps Chris company until Xander arrives. While the injured fisherman is being taken to hospital, Maddie sees the two sisters meeting and Donna helps Rin back into the sea. On arriving at Bristol Cove, Chris is treated by Dr. Abbott, as his friends know they can't take him to a hospital. That night, Maddie tracks Rin's movements using the locator beacon, but the signal is lost when the mermaid reaches a certain distance from the shore. A month has passed since the two sisters returned to the ocean, and Chris is drinking in a bar when he is found by Deckard, who has gone after him in an attempt to find some clue that will lead him to Donna. During dinner, while they are alone at the institute, Ben and Maddie realize that Rin's locator has started working again and discover that she is returning to Bristol Cove. That afternoon, the couple go to the coast to find her and see her tail loose on the beach. While Maddie collects a sample, Ben goes out to look around, but loses track of Rin as Donna rips off her sister's necklace while trying to convince her to go back to the ocean. Concerned for her people, Rin decides to continue her mission to find the humans who helped her, because she knows she can trust them. As they don't know where to find the mermaid, the couple decide to return to the institute, and, when they get there, to their surprise, they come across Rin and her sister. Just then, Helen appears and asks why they have returned to dry land. In response, Rin reveals that her people have run out of food, as there are few fish left in the ocean for them to hunt. Seeing some lifeless fish on the table, Donna gets angry and attacks Ben, believing that he is to blame for depleting the availability of food. Immediately, seeing her friend in danger, Rin pushes her sister away and the two start fighting. During the duel, Ben lights a tracker and the fire drives Donna away, who decides to leave without her sister. As she is injured, the mermaid decides not to enter the sea, as she knows that her blood will attract sharks. So Donna walks through the city until she reaches a fish depot and takes the opportunity to feed herself. Suddenly, a security guard appears and tries to throw her out, but gives up after seeing the threatening look on her face. Seeing the man walk away, Donna doesn't think twice before attacking him, so Wally decides to call for help and sounds the alarm. At that moment, the mermaid runs away frightened and looks for another place to hide. At dawn, Helen decides to go out to look for her and finds the mermaid sleeping on the docks. After feeding Donna, the woman says she wants to help her and gradually manages to win her trust. When she gets home, Helen reveals a secret she has been keeping for decades and tells her that she is the daughter of a human and a mermaid. At dusk, Donna once again goes out hunting and spots Decker in the fish store. At that moment, the mermaid realizes that, even after all this time, she is still being hunted. The next morning, while Ben goes to talk to his father about the predatory fishing being financed by his company, Maddie takes Rin to Helen's house so that she can make peace with her sister. When he discovers that Ben was the guy who found the speaker that was implanted in the fishing boat as bait, Decker decides to go after him and finds some suspicious marks on the wall of the institute. Suddenly, Jerry shows up and reveals that Ben didn't go to work that day, so Decker leaves with the promise that he'll be back soon, and ends up being seen by Chris. Seeing the man who came after him to ask about Donna hanging around town, the fisherman suspects something is wrong and decides to go and talk to Ben. When he finds out that Decker is looking for Donna, Ben returns home and enlists Maddie's help in researching the guy. That evening, the couple decide to go to a charity party organized by Elaine, Ben's mother, and there the young man meets Decker. At this point, the man starts talking about his research involving a rare sea creature that was recently discovered. According to Decker, after using this specimen's DNA in a group of mice that were unable to move, each one of them fully recovered its mobility. When she heard this, Elaine was thrilled, as this story rekindled her hope of walking again and being able to get out of her wheelchair. When he finally gets the chance to talk to Dr. Decker alone, Ben tries to make a deal with him and asks for his help to stop predatory fishing. At this point, Decker reveals that exploring the ocean was the government's idea, because the authorities want to end the availability of food so that the mermaids are forced to go to the surface. This plan was implemented with the aim of catching as many specimens as possible. Upon discovering this, Ben calls Helen and asks her to keep Rin and Donna away from the ocean, as they are being hunted. Suddenly, during the event, Decker hears a distinctive sound and goes to meet Donna. As he and Ben were the only people to hear the sirens singing, only they can recognize that sound and end up being drawn in. What Decker doesn't realize is that she has just been ambushed. When she learned that the man who injured her sister was in town, Rin decided to help her get revenge. Seeing Decker being attacked, Ben takes the opportunity to force him to make a call and send the Navy soldiers away from Bristol Cove. However, on contacting the commander, Decker discovers that the capture operation has already begun and it is now too late to back out. Furious at hearing this news, Rin tries to eliminate her enemy, but Ben manages to stop her and the mermaids decide to leave, having come to the conclusion that they can no longer trust him. However, when she realizes that her sister intends to return to the ocean, Rin decides to separate from her again and Donna ends up being caught by Chris and Xander just before she jumps into the water. After undergoing its transformation, the creature moves away from the shore and returns home. Just then, Xander sees Donna's tail on the surface and his suspicion about the existence of mermaids is confirmed. Excited by his new discovery, the man gets on his boat in the company of Chris and calls Ben to say he's going after Donna. Worried about her sister, Rin decides to return to the ocean to look for her, but ends up being caught by Marissa, who captures her and takes her to the police station. In an attempt to prevent Xander from succeeding in his mission, Ben decides to go with him. What none of the crew imagined was that Sean, the captain of the boat, was asleep on deck and, when the ship starts to rock, he wakes up. Furious, the man takes control of the boat and says he will take the fisherman back to shore. However, Ben manages to convince him to go ahead with the mission to prevent the military from capturing the mermaids. When they find the Navy ship, the team realizes that it is abandoned and decides to go aboard to investigate. At that moment, they realize that the ship is full of blood and the cages that would have been used to imprison the mermaids are empty. Suddenly, Ben senses danger approaching and orders his friends back to the boat, so Sean pilots towards the shore. When he discovers that Rin is his daughter's friend, Sheriff Dale calls Maddie to the police station and discovers that he is facing a mermaid. To prove that she's telling the truth, Maddie takes some seawater and pours it over Rin's arm to trigger the transformation. While on his way to the mainland, Sean notices that his boat's engine has stopped working and the crew is attacked by spears coming out of the water. At that moment, Ben and his friends grab harpoons to beat back the attack, and suddenly a merman invades the boat with the mission of eliminating them. Seeing Ben in trouble, about to be hit by the creature's blade, Xander picks up his gun and shoots it at Levi, who manages to escape after being hit. Just then Donna appears and uses her singing to attract Chris, who abandons the harpoon and walks towards her. Meanwhile, Ben goes after the merman who attacked him and, with Xander's help, manages to imprison him. Seeing his friend hypnotized by the mermaid, Calvin uses a flare to distract her and Ben manages to save Chris just before he is eliminated. When Donna walks towards him, the young man pulls a lever and the mermaid falls into the water after being hit by a fishing net. At that moment, Levi manages to escape from his prison and strikes Sean with his spear. Hearing the captain's screams, everyone rushes to help him and, once again, the creature manages to escape. Despite receiving medical attention from his team, Sean loses a lot of blood and doesn't survive, leaving Xander behind with a feeling of guilt for having taken that boat without his father's permission. In order not to raise suspicions about the existence of mermaids, the group makes the difficult decision to dispose of the captain's body at sea to say that he was carried away by the current after falling into the ocean. That night, after discovering the truth, Dale decides to free Rin and, when confronted by Marissa, he claims that the young woman has an alibi that exonerates her from any suspicion about what happened to Donnie. When Ben comes home and tells Maddie what happened, Rin eavesdrops on the conversation and feels bad knowing that her people have eliminated an innocent man. Feeling guilty, the young woman invades Sean's funeral and approaches Xander to pay her respects. During the conversation, Rin reveals that she knows that the fisherman's father was eliminated by the fishmen and, upon hearing this, Xander becomes suspicious, as everyone believes that Sean lost his life due to an accident. At this point, Ben decides to reveal the truth to his friend and Xander is furious when he discovers that he has been hiding this secret for so long. At the end of the afternoon, Rin decides to pay a visit to the sea lions living at the institute and one of the animals hugs her. At this point, Ben shows up to keep the mermaid company and asks her to sing for him again, because everyone who hears a mermaid sing becomes obsessed with that song. The next morning, Donna arrives at the beach and invades the mainland in the company of Levi and Katrina. After stealing some clothes from people walking along the beach, the trio walk through the town until they reach Helen's store to ask about Rin's whereabouts. As she knows that Donna was one of those responsible for eliminating Sean, Helen says she will no longer collaborate with her and, as soon as the trio leave, the woman contacts Ben to warn him about the threat. So when Donna shows up at the Institute's headquarters, Rin readily agrees to return with her to the ocean, because she knows that if she doesn't, her friends will suffer the consequences. However, instead of returning to the ocean with the two sisters, Levi and Katrina decide to attack Rin, as they don't want to take her back because she has spent too much time with the humans. Realizing their intentions, Ben uses seawater to attack them and, while the creatures begin to transform, the young man flees with Rin and Donna. While hiding in his house with the mermaids, Ben receives a visit from Xander, and when he sees Donna, the fisherman recognizes her. At that moment, he blames her for what happened to his father and prepares to shoot. However, the fisherman decides to postpone his revenge when he discovers that Levi is also in town and Rin says she will help him hunt him down. That night, Dale is on patrol in the city when he comes across Levi and Katrina, both of whom try to attack him. When the woman breaks his window, the sheriff draws his gun and shoots. When he hears the sound of gunfire, Levi runs away and is chased by the car, which knocks him into a dumpster. While still unconscious, the merman is handcuffed and Katrina rushes into town to find a hiding place. On the way to the police station, Levi wakes up and starts struggling to free himself from the handcuffs. While trying to restrain him, Dale loses control of the vehicle and has an accident. In an attempt to find Katrina, Rin decides to set herself up as bait and manages to lure her in, but ends up being dragged into a warehouse. Immediately, her friends rush to her aid and Donna attacks Katrina to protect her sister. Suddenly, Xander appears wielding his gun and, just as he was about to fire, Levi appears and manages to take him down. At that moment, the pair run off and, seeing them running through the streets, Dale starts shooting, but ends up being hit by Levi. Seeing her father injured, Maddie asks Ben to help her take him to Helen's house so that he can receive medical attention. Meanwhile, Rin continues to be pursued by Katrina and the two start a new duel. This time, however, Rin manages to defeat her opponent, but decides to spare her. At that moment, the trio set off in search of Levi and Rin arrives seconds before Ben is eliminated by the merman. However, when he realizes that Katrina, the leader of the matriarchy, has been defeated in battle, Levi bows down to Rin, as she is now considered the dominant female. When Xander shows up with a thirst for revenge, Ben tries to stop him from firing and the bullet that should have been used to eliminate Levi ends up hitting Donna. Seeing her injured sister, Rin takes her to Helen's house and orders the other members of her species to return to the ocean. Minutes later, Ben shows up and, when he discovers that Donna isn't regenerating, he decides to ask Decker for help. The doctor then takes some samples of stem cells that were extracted from the mermaid while she was being used as a guinea pig in the government laboratory and manages to stabilize her. However, sometime later, Donna's condition worsens again and Rin asks everyone to leave so that she can say goodbye to her sister. When she learns that Donna is gone, Helen guides Ben and his friends to a sacred place where the mermaid's body can rest in peace. After burying her sister, Rin decides to stay on the continent and build a new life alongside her human friends. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.